If somebody is a mother and they did not receive enough from their own mother, they still have a need as a child that's unfulfilled. And so that unfulfilled need will look to their next person in front of them, which is their own child.
Welcome to the Madinat Mom Podcast, where real moms talk, experts share insights, and coffee fuels the chat so you can thrive in motherhood. I'm Nour, your host, and my guest today, Salma, is a mom of two and a Family Constellations Facilitator. Family Constellations explore how what we inherit emotionally from our family can shape how we show up in motherhood. So if motherhood has stirred emotions in you that you don't quite understand, this episode is for you. Salma, welcome to the Madinat Mom Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Can you start by telling us a bit about yourself?
Of course. Yeah, so I'm originally Egyptian and I grew up here in Dubai actually. And I've recently just moved back here with my husband and two kids after being in London for more than 10 years. So it's been quite nice coming back here as a mother, a bit of a full circle moment. My work mainly revolves around family constellations. I carry out group workshops as well as in-person sessions and online sessions. And I also do seminars and talks about insights from family constellations that really help create awareness about the different journeys that you enter in your life.
Mm-hmm. You're a mom of two girls.
Yes.
How is it being a mom of girls?
Oh, it's so nice. It's really a joy, and I'm honestly so grateful for this journey of motherhood because it's kind of what brought me to what I do today. It's really that journey that opened up this path for me in family constellations, which or in wellness in general, which is something that I'm so grateful for. It's ironic because it's that thing that kind of unravels you, but brings you, to this moment of getting back to yourself. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How was the transition to motherhood for you?
When I hear the word transition, I think of slow, smooth sailing, but I don't feel like that's what it was like for me. I'm very meticulous and organized, and I like to pre-plan a lot. So when I found out I was pregnant, I was very read all the books, did everything that you would do to kind of prepare yourself. But I think nobody really talks about the emotional side of that journey, what you experience on the other hand, the different things that I experienced, I think, wasn't really seen on the outside. I had a normal pregnancy and things were fine. But on the inside, I was feeling an overwhelming amount of emotions of fear, anxiety. I was struggling a lot with that and I was constantly worried. I had a lot of guilt. And I think this is kind of what riled up a lot of these triggers in me during my first pregnancy. So I think moving into that, you kind of learn to find your way somehow. But I do feel like my transition was more losing myself in motherhood. And it's that I only recognize that version of me as a mother rather than anything else. And all my focus was really about my child. It was about taking care of her, making sure she was well and nurturing her. But I also lost sight of everything else that was a part of me as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was it during this time that you came across family constellations?
Actually, it wasn't. It was during my second pregnancy that I started to feel like the same things were coming up again, because obviously I did not address them the first time, and I kind of just went through it and survived, that part. But the second time around, I started to feel like things were coming back up again. And my daughter had reflux. So that was also an added layer that was also unexpected. So I thought that it was time for me to kind of reach out to someone. And this is when I started understanding how a lot of what you experience can be way bigger than the situation, and things like that might seem normal on the outside, but on the inside they feel much larger than it is. Not an overreaction, but like a true sense of the emotion that's heavier. And at the time I was feeling a lot of guilt. I was just constantly guilty when my daughter would spit up milk. I would feel like it's my fault. There's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with my milk. It was always a reflection of me, and the guilt was just way bigger. And thankfully, my therapist at the time that I reached out to was a facilitator in family constellations as well. And we looked at this from a systemic point of view and realized that a lot of what I was carrying was systemic. It wasn't just mine. And that just changed so much for me. And I was so curious. I took one module, I remember, just out of curiosity. And I was like, I just want to know how does this even work? This is insane. And I found myself 2 years deep into an inner work journey of, understanding how much your family system holds. And it was just, this is really where it kind of sparked for me. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For listeners that have not come across the term family constellations yet, can you explain a bit about what it contains?
So family constellations, I would say, is a healing modality rather than a therapy. It's a method for you to really see unseen dynamics that are happening in the background. It's almost a subconscious thing that's rooted and going on in your life, and you don't realize it until you face a certain challenge and you look at it through that lens, where you start to see that there's something else happening in the background that you were not aware of. And once you start to see that, it could be some disorder between different family members that are causing certain dynamics that are affecting how you are showing up, which place you are in your family. And those dynamics really shape how you are interacting with other people, interacting with your partner, with your children. It just shapes a lot of how we carry ourselves today.
What does a session usually look like? How do you actually, find out what has been happening in generations before you?
So, the concept behind family constellations is how we are connected to everything in our family system, past, present, and future. And this is connected through a field of energy. And when you set up a constellation, you are using that field of energy to access this information about the family. So when a facilitator hears of the issue that someone would like to work on, they would ask questions about events in the family that might weigh on the family, or certain things that have happened that may play a role in the issue that the person is experiencing. And once that's to some degree clear, the client starts to select people from the group to represent certain family members or even elements that are needed for the constellation. And once that's set up, they start to interact or behave towards each other in a certain way that gives the client information about a clear dynamic that's being seen between these representatives. And it almost forms an inner family image that this client holds within them. And based on this image, there are maybe small interventions or healing sentences or things that are shifted to allow more order or a healthier flow of energy between this family system. And then that image integrates into the client's soul. It starts to shift something once they see it. It's almost like a truth or an understanding of something that's been happening in a subconscious way that's kind of affecting this challenge that they're experiencing.
Mm-hmm. So the client would identify what challenge they want to dig into.
Yes.
So in your case, that was guilt.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
But one of the examples that I do use is, for example, with twins. If twins are in separate countries, sometimes a twin can sense if something is wrong with their sibling. And that's one of the ways that we can be energetically connected, because on a soul level, we are so connected. And this is how we're connected to our family systems. On a soul level, we're deeply bonded. And when we set up a constellation, we are in resonance with family members. And when we set that intention to represent or to be in this field, we start to see these dynamics because we are in resonance with family members and we're connected to them on a soul level. This is really the essence of the work. I think the beauty in family constellations is that it gives a place to events, to emotions, to things that have happened. And just like anything that goes unacknowledged, once you acknowledge it and once you allow it and open your heart to it, include it in your story, it gives you a sense of peace, it gives you relief, it gives you strength, because you take away strength from that event or from that emotion that you've experienced.
You mentioned that a lot of the times these emotions sort of come up during difficult or vulnerable times in your life. Why would you say the transition to motherhood is one of those vulnerable moments?
I think it's because everyone has their whole family system that is unique to them. So what I experience can be completely different than what you've experienced. And that's very true to my stories, how I was raised, how I grew up, my attachment to my family members. All of that plays a role in how I show up as a mother. And so whatever is in my system is completely unique to me. So it's not very easy for me, given that there's not necessarily a safe space to open up and share, oh, you know, this is how it was done. This is the pattern that's been passed down to me. That's all I know. And that may be very different from you. So it's maybe comes with a lot of judgment. It's not very easy. It comes with maybe shame as well. That's very common, I think, that a lot of mothers experience in this journey.
And Salma, in the work that you've done, what kind of patterns would you say show up most in moms?
I would say the most common one is, and I'll say it just in the sense of the issue, it's, I don't want to become like my mother. That's one of the issues that I think is most common with my clients. It's that they start to notice that they are in the same situation, repeating things that they almost swore all their life that they wouldn't want to do. And this is just one of the common patterns of once you reject something, you know, you attract it even more. And the healing behind that is to kind of see that your journey and how you grew up and your childhood is really part of your story. And the more you acknowledge it and see it for what it is and just understand your path that brought you to here today, that's really the essence of what you move forward with. But the more you reject it, the more you repeat it. Okay. And it's really a process as well, you know, with each person and their unique story with their, you know, growing up. One of the other common patterns I would say is the parentified child. And you can see that with either parents with their own children or, you know, parents as children to their own parents. So it's in both generations it happens. And the parentified child, if I didn't receive what I needed to receive in terms of emotional support, energy, time, whatever I needed as a child to nurture and support me and develop the way I needed to develop, then I'm still in the place of that child looking for it. And it's unfulfilled. So where do I look to? To my child. So I'm placing that burden on my child that will take it on gladly because they love their parents so much. And they will start to play that role for their parents. So they are parenting their own parents. And that's also one of the most common dynamics.
Can you explain that a bit more?
Sure. So a lot of the time in generations where you see like a lineage of like, you know, grandmother, mother, and child, a lot of the time you'll see that there's an attachment that's broken, that's not there for so many different reasons, right? And it's with no judgment or to no one's fault. It's more about understanding how people were able to show up and be present. People may have been physically there, but maybe emotionally not present. So if somebody is a mother and they did not receive enough from their own mother, they still have a need as a child that's unfulfilled. And so that unfulfilled need will look to their next person in front of them, which is their own child. And they will start to look for that fulfillment, that validation. You know, do you love me? Am I enough? Am I this? Am I that? All of that from their own child. And it starts to burden the child. And the healing here is to actually look at, you know, what it is that source that we are looking for and connecting to that source and understanding, you know, where our wounds are, and then starting to look at our children from the place of an adult. And this is where like this disorder would be, like who's the parent, who's the child, and really understanding if we're doing this from the right place, you know, a mother as an adult.
Mm-hmm. So if we were to dig a little deeper into how do unresolved patterns, family patterns, get passed down to your child. This is an example of that.
Yeah, because at some point, the reason it happens is because you're not aware of it. And the lack of awareness is one of them. If I'm not aware that this is an unhealed pattern, then I am just doing it subconsciously. I don't know that it's happening. But then if I start to notice that I'm being needy with my child, I don't know why I feel like they need to validate me so much, or there's something that's flipped, it doesn't feel right, then I can start to notice that something is there and I can look at it. And one of the best ways that you can look at this is to always look at the relationship that you have with your own mother and start to see what is there that you can continue to heal. And the more you heal that's really your source of what you can use to strengthen and bond with your own child. It's a very powerful place to work from. One of the other ways that actually things get passed down, as a pattern or just through generations, is just by belonging to our family. We're so bonded to that family system that on a soul level, we just carry whatever is unresolved. And one of the ways that we do that is just we repeat patterns, and we do things out of a feeling of, I belong to this family, so I'm going to do it the same way. The moment we start to break patterns, we start to feel a bit of guilt. It's that feeling of, oh, I'm not doing it the same way. That must mean that, it risks my feeling of, I'm not like them. I don't belong to that family because I'm doing it differently. And I think it takes a tiny bit of good guilt to kind of change a few things or do things that feel more aligned or more, where you have resources to understand how things are different and how you can do them differently. And I can give you an example if it helps. It's kind of like, don't pick up a crying baby. You'll get them attached to you and you'll never be able to put them down. This is something I think culturally has been told to everyone, And if you think about it, that's how my mom did it. That's how my grandmother did it. This is what people will say. And then the moment that mother picks up her crying baby in front of them, there's that feeling of, oh, I'm doing that thing that they told me not to do. I don't know how I feel about it. And it's two ways. You can either put the baby down and carry on and do it like everybody has done it, or you can really know that this is the way you're nurturing your baby and you're loving your baby and you're supporting them. And then that's one of the ways that you can do it with love rather than, with a rejection. I think that's one of the ways.
Mm-hmm. I think we have access to so much information now that we're able to make informed decisions on how we want to show up as parents.
Yes.
But before, it was really just word of mouth, right?
Of
My
course.
mom would ask her mom would ask her mom. And that's also, that's an advantage, but it's also what makes it so hard, because you're faced with making these decisions of, should I do it the way that, studies are telling me to do it, or should I do it the way that my parents and her parents and their parents did it before us?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. How can a mom actually begin her own healing journey?
Reach out for support. That's one of the easiest and best ways. And to also, I would say, ask the question why. I think nobody has the time anymore to question or ask why. Or maybe somebody is drawn into their own things, but asking why. Why is this emotion coming up? Why am I triggered so much? Why does this pattern keep happening? The why is so valuable. It's like a child. But why? But why? That feeling that it's good to ask why, because when you start to ask, you start to notice and see where's the answers. Okay, maybe I don't have the answers. Maybe I can get some answers. I can start to question and understand my behavior. Why am I behaving this way? Why am I reacting this way every single time? And the more I ask, the more I receive answers, the more I can work on myself and I can understand myself better. And I think this is really the key. It's just, therapy or noticing things. And yeah.
For listeners that want to work with you, how can they reach you?
I carry out online sessions for international clients. I do one-to-one sessions as well, in person here in Dubai. And I also carry out group workshops where we do constellations and group exercises. I also do these seminars and talks that are, inspired by journeys like parenthood and, different stages in our lives. Yeah.
Right. So guys, you know the drill. We'll add the links in the show notes below. So Salma, I think, becoming a mom, you're faced with so many new experiences that it brings up a lot of emotions in you in a way that you didn't even know you had, or in a way that you don't quite understand. How would you say, or what would you say are some silent experiences that show up in motherhood, even though they're not talked about?
I would say I just touch on one thing that you just said, which is the new experiences. So you can imagine that you're experiencing something completely new that you're still kind of learning on the go. And there's obviously the emotional and physical aspects of it, but there's also the old experiences that live within you as well. You carry your mother's experience, your grandmother's experience, all of that lives through you as well. So a lot of the times we carry energetically previous experiences as well that were not seen. One of those, for example, can be miscarriage. And it's one of those things that can be a silent experience where people will not really talk about it. It can be brushed off quite quickly, even though it holds a lot of emotions. So if you can imagine not just someone experiencing in the present day, but in a world geared for survival, previous generations ago, nobody had the time to sit and process that, and it takes a toll. And that grief doesn't just stay there with that person, and it's put on the side. It actually gets carried on generation after generation for it to be brought to light, for it to be seen, because it's unresolved. And I can speak from personal experience, because 2 years ago we were also planning to have a third baby, and I had a miscarriage. And it was only through that experience that I could really sense and understand how much grief and love you can carry for a baby whose journey was just 8 weeks old. And I think that's something that's unbelievable, but it proved and it showed to me how much a soul, just because the baby is unborn, it does not mean that it did not exist. And I think that's one of the most profound things that I learned in that experience, is the connection that you have to your unborn baby and all of that. It's something amazing, and takes its time and has its grief and is a process as well. I think a lot of the time with miscarriage, it's seen, especially if it was a short time, a lot of the time people don't acknowledge it as part of the family. But in constellations, it's seen that, unborn siblings are also, unborn babies are also part of the sibling line. And it's important to acknowledge it as part of the family, because it was there and it happened, and it was a soul that existed at some point. And it can be proven from how much the mother connects to that baby in that moment, when the conception happens. But of course, a lot of the time, there's a lot of emotions that accompany that make people kind of, brush it off for so many different reasons. It's, be grateful that, you're well and your health is okay, and just be grateful that everything is fine. And then they move from grief to let's be grateful, even though both can coexist. Or, dwelling on something. It's like when you're dwelling so much and you're sad about a loss, and that, even though it's also part of the process. And a lot of the feelings that accompany it too, and some mothers do feel, is that they were responsible for the miscarriage. So they feel a lot of shame and guilt. So it's painful to process. It's not always easy to go through the emotions of it. But what ends up happening is, because it's so painful, then it becomes something that is pushed down and is suppressed, and then it's unacknowledged. And I think this is where it kind of shows up in constellations. And that's the beauty of this work, is that you carry it with you as part of you, rather than rejecting it or pushing it away,
This is how healing begins, right? You
Yes.
start actually acknowledging that what you went through. You have the right to grieve. You have the right to feel sad.
Yes.
You have the right to pause. I've heard a lot about, moms that have a miscarriage and they just continue with their day because it's okay, even though it's not okay. As you said, it brings up a lot of emotions in you.
Yes.
If you don't mind me asking, how did you process that experience?
I think one of the ways is obviously therapy. I was doing therapy at the time, and that helped me so much, because I was able to have that safe space with no judgment, with compassion, and just to really allow everything that was going on inside of me. But I also journaled a lot of writing. When whatever it is, if you want to be creative, you can color. I colored a lot, drawing, painting, any of that. Externalizing your emotions out is very important, because you're acknowledging them in the process. And a lot of this part is acknowledging. It's instead of denial or suppressing anything that comes with it, the feelings that come with it. A big part of it is the acknowledgement, and you can do that in so many different ways. And to grieve, and to really just take the time to pause and to grieve and take all the time that I need. And that was one of the things that definitely helped me through it.
If we were to sort of explain the role that Family Constellations plays here, if you did not take the time to heal, then it would somehow show up in your daughters. Is that correct?
In some way, it may show up in my children as different behaviors, anger, sadness, because there is grief that's there that's unprocessed. And children are just so amazing and so beautiful in the sense that their souls are very innocent. And they are there to say, almost without awareness, Mom, Dad, I'll carry whatever you want me to carry for you. And that's what children do. So there's a part of them that can be susceptible to carrying things for their parents. So that's why it's very important to acknowledge and include whatever it is that's part of your story to be able to kind of lessen the burden on our children. That's really the essence of this work.
Another silent experience that I think some moms carry is abortion. Mm-hmm. How is that different from miscarriage?
I think it's different only in the sense that it's by choice. And I think just as any choice we would make in our lives, it's important to acknowledge that choice and acknowledge the consequences of that choice. Instead of, again, it comes up with the emotion of shame and guilt and that. And the more that's not processed as well, that also has consequences, as anything would that's unacknowledged. So I think it's the same concept of a miscarriage, that it's still something unacknowledged loss, and it's still a soul that existed, and it's important to acknowledge it as that,
Salma, what do you wish more moms knew about support and healing?
That it doesn't, like when I talk about therapy, it could be any kind of modality that helps you feel seen and helps you feel understood. It could be just someone that allows you to be yourself and say whatever you need to say and hold space for you. It gives you that presence and compassion. That's some of the most important things that I think throughout this journey that you would need, with no judgment, no opinions, no past experiences. You don't want that. You just want to breathe and say what's on your mind without any consequences, And this is one of the things that helps. But I think therapy does not have to be that you're going through an illness or something extremely tragic for you to reach out to someone. That's really not it. I think it's such an amazing tool to be able to understand yourself better and work on yourself, because the more you work on yourself, really the more confident you become in the decisions that you make and how you show up, also in being in touch with your own emotions, like raw emotions, like really feel love, like really feel joy, feel anger, like all of these things are important. They're a part of us. You're not hiding anything away. You're not suppressing anything. It's a part of you. And the more you're in touch with that, the more you can connect to others. It's an amazing thing that you can do.
So what message would you give to moms who feel unseen, alone, or overwhelmed?
I would say that you're definitely not alone, because it may seem like that, but everyone is going through the same thing. The trick is that nobody shows it, and it's not that easy to be vulnerable and show all of that in a world where, with social media, somebody is setting up a tripod to wake up in the morning and feed their baby. This is not reality. There's a whole side of it that is real and true to you, and I think just take it one step at a time. It's completely normal to feel all of these emotions, but my main message would be to reach out for support, because it makes a huge difference to understand yourself and connect with yourself. That's one of the biggest gifts. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Salma. Thank you for being
You're
here
most
and
welcome.
for explaining family constellations a little bit more.
It was a pleasure.
It was so nice to have you and to have this conversation. As mentioned, we'll include all the links in the show notes below. If you guys have enjoyed the episode, please make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. If you have a story of your own to share, you can always share it with us. You can reach us on contact@madinatmom.com, www.madinatmom.com, or on our Instagram @madinatmom. Until next time, take care of yourselves as fiercely as you take care of your little ones.